Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Wendy Papazian.
I'm Via Williams.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poel. You know, as a business owner, we are responsible for all the things at work, right? Especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out, like you are the person. You know, what's interesting about that though is oftentimes, especially as females, we're also responsible for all the things or many of the things at home. And so not only do we keep our teams and our companies running, we as women also are keeping the household at the same time running too. And I always have this thought in my head where, you know, that like circus little show, if you will, right? And like you go to the circus and you see this guy and he like sets up all these little stands of sticks. And he starts spinning the plates one by one. Right. And then he starts getting them all going and they're all going and he's going back and forth, spinning all the plates, spinning all the plates, spinning all the plates. Well, it's great to do that for like a minute or 2 minutes while he's doing his show. But many times as entrepreneurs and also busy household runners, like we're spinning the plates 24/7.
Okay, Seychelle, I use this plate spinning analogy every day, daily. Like literally,
Really?
It's like, I feel like it's my title. I didn't know that every day I'm like, I'm the plate spinner. I'm the plate spinner.
Yes,
You're the plate spinner. Yeah.
And like you can do that short term, just like he can successfully spin those plates short term.
Put that on your bio. Backup
Seriously.
wordsmith.
I might do that. And we need to do an episode on bios. We've had a lot of popular requests.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Secretary.
we'll give you
write
a
that
bio.
down.
I did. It's on our future lists, so it's on
It
there.
is.
I saw it.
We'll do it.
So we'll get that for you guys. But you know, it's okay to spin those plates for a couple of minutes, but the odds are that guy can't do that all day. He's going to break some plates, and we just want to make sure that the plates that fall are the ones that don't matter instead of the ones that are the most important, right? Gary Keller talks all the time about, you know, like in life, we have glass balls and rubber balls, and the glass balls are your family, they're your friendships, they're your health, they're your spirituality,
He's talking
right?
about juggling, and he's like, you can drop some balls and they're rubber, but what he's saying is like the glass balls will break.
Yeah, the glass balls will break. And so it's same thing with the plate spinning, right? You keep all those going, and eventually there's going to be some of them that you just can't keep spinning. So what we want to do is come up with a way that you can get more done with less time. And that means that sometimes you have to spin fewer plates. You just do in order to do that. But you can do that 24/7 and it's not going to drive you nuts. So I'm excited for us to talk about that today.
Yeah. Well, and I would ask the question, you know, we all have the same amount of time in the day, but how is that some people are more productive or they seem to get more done over time than others?
Yeah.
Like, what's the secret?
Seriously.
It really comes down to letting go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah has said, as we shared before, letting go can often create more opportunity for others to grow and thrive. So today I want to challenge the three of us, right? Sarah's on vacation for this episode. And for you listeners out there to think about everything you have on your plate differently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk today. We're going to give you tips on how you can do 2 to 3 times more with half the time.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
like that. I feel good about that.
You guys have all listened to our GPS episode, I hope. If not, you can go back and listen to it. And so
unless it aired at a different time because we messed up the schedule.
We are going to make sure that it doesn't.
This does happen quite a bit. I know there's a few of you out there who are just rolling their eyes. They're like, they don't really have everything down.
Like we record these in batches, admittedly. And so we'll do like a batch recording.
And then we're like, oh shoot, we should do that one first.
We just gave him a glimpse behind the curtain and it's not pretty back there, people.
What is that called in the movies when they
great.
make everything match up like that?
The ketchup? I don't know.
No, when they make everything match up.
Oh, they call it the continuity director.
Continuity.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah.
We need a continuity director.
Synchronicity was not the word.
Wendy, we need a lot of things.
Let's put that in the budget. We'll put that in the budget.
Wait, what's a budget?
Budget?
Oh, wait.
Wait, budget? Wait, hold on. What?
Know your numbers.
Dang it.
Okay. Anyway, so going back to what I was saying, hopefully you've listened to our GPS episode and we haven't completely screwed the pooch and that episode has already happened. So you will have a great episode in store for you.
It's really good. So go listen to it.
Yeah. So some of this is gonna kind of sound familiar, and a lot of our stuff overlaps. Actually, a lot of these tactics that we use overlap. We say the same things every episode in some senses, but we're going to give you some tactics on how to accomplish more in less time. So we're going to go through 4 steps today, right, ladies? We're going to go through 4 steps on how to do this. Number 1 is the step of assessing your current responsibilities, right, and creating your not to-do list. Okay. So what has to be done? Assess your current responsibilities, not to-do list. Number 2, reviewing your goals and then putting those next to your calendar. Goals versus time. Goals versus time calendar. Number 3, visit your budget and ask for help. And number 4, say no, because we have all this clarity now. Say no and leverage out. And what we mean by leverage out is have other people or businesses or tech or something do things for you. Right? Mm-hmm. Things have to be done, but you don't have to be the one to do them.
Love that.
I love that. All right. So our first one is to assess what you're already doing, right? And then create your not to-do list. So sometimes it's really helpful just to write down, first of all of your roles, right? Wife, mom, daughter, leader,
friend,
teacher,
president,
speaker, chairman of the board.
Business 1, business 2, business 3.
Investor.
Yeah, all of the things, right? And honestly, sometimes you write that list down and it can be staggering. All the things that we do, we're all operating.
It has caused me many a breakdown.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So write all that down. And then at the same time, I think everybody should do this, and me included. I'm looking for an executive assistant right now, and I've kind of been without one for a while. And I, hear myself say this over and over again. Hey, Wendy, you need to get some of these things off your plate. And yet I still haven't done it. But do what I call your not to-do list, which is to just take a piece of paper, tape it to your desk, or your refrigerator or on your phone as a note, and right at the top of it with your Sharpie, my not to-do list, right? We're all so good at making to-do lists. We're so good at it. And so then every time you're doing something where you don't want to do it, it doesn't feel good, or you've maybe put it off 1, 2, 3 times. If you put something off 3 times, it's definitely got to go on your not to-do list.
Because you don't enjoy doing it, really.
It's either, you either don't enjoy doing it or you're not good at it. You're never going to get good at it.
And that's okay.
And then eventually you're going to have a list that can be a job description for someone, or in the case of some of you listeners, multiple people. I wish Sarah was here because she just did this recently. We had a retreat and she hadn't revised her role in her company for 3 or 4 years. And her GCI has gone from 5 million to 20 million or whatever she's at now, which is an astounding a testament to her work ethic, honestly, that she can do that without changing her role. But because of her tribe, she knew we were going to give her a hard time about it. And so she literally was working on her job description on the plane on the way to the retreat, right? Because she knew she had to come up with her not to-do list. And it was quite a powerful experience for her. And she's working because once she sets her mind to something, she's working very, very hard at achieving it. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
The other thing that really has helped when we first started doing these exercises in creating the not to-do list was to understand what your dollar per hour is. And if you haven't done that exercise before, we've talked about it in previous episodes, but if you haven't done it, it's very simple to figure it out. It's you take how much money you made in the last year or the last 12 months, and you divide that by what an average person works, which is about 2,000 hours a year. So you take the amount of money you made divided by 2,000, and that's going to give you what your dollar per hour is. And if all of a sudden you start making that list of all of the things, the roles you have or the jobs that you have or the responsibilities you have, and you start looking at that and you start realizing that by doing those activities, you're actually working below what your dollar per hour is, that helps you also understand what maybe should go on the not to-do list too.
Yeah.
Yep. So true.
So Seychelle, your goals, does your calendar reflect your goals?
Thank you for that. This is a hard one, I think. When you have a big, hairy, audacious goal, maybe it is to build massive passive income in the next 20 years, or maybe it's to triple your company in the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe it's just to work 50% less and make 50% more. Whatever that goal looks like to you.
Or maybe it's just to work 50% less.
Yeah, maybe it's just to work 50% less and make the same amount. When you write that down and you go back and listen to our awesome GPS episode to help you create those goals in that 1-3-5, one thing that we've talked about here a lot between the three of us kind of offline is getting clear around what success looks like for you and understanding what that vision is and understanding what feels like a win. And then what you want to do is you want to take that and you want to go compare that to what your daily calendar looks like. Because oftentimes we get real clear on what it is we want and we don't realize all the things we've committed to or all the things that we've said yes to or all the other things that are still on our plate that haven't gone off of it yet for us to be able to accomplish what we really want to achieve. And I can give you a great example of that personally. Like Quinn's school opened this last year and I said, okay, for this year, we're going to help out a ton with the strategic planning board. And yeah, sure, I'll be PTO president and we'll do all these things that don't pay well because you don't get paid except, to make sure your daughter has a good school. But it takes a lot of time. And, you start then realizing that you're spending 10 or 15 hours a week on this, right? And you start saying, okay, well, I've committed to this for the year, but that doesn't mean I have to commit to that for next school year. So I can start unwinding, honoring my commitments, but start unwinding my commitments for the next school year to free up time to be able to focus on other priorities or a higher dollar per hour.
Well, yeah. And let's just go right to the calendar. If it is not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. And this is where you're going to find your no list is going to be very clear, which is why Wendy very wisely says to tape this or put it on your iPhone notes wherever you're working, because you will determine very quickly how limited your time really is. When you back out of this and you go, okay, what are my most important items? For most of us, it's, family. So what are my obligations with my family? Maybe it's dinner together every night. Maybe it's, I won't miss a soccer game or whatever it is. Any type of family time, vacations, friend time, doctor's visit, whatever it is,
self-care,
right? The very, very important, right? The very important priorities, those have to go in first, right? So it's the big rock exercise we all know where if you put in all the little small sand first, you won't fit everything in. But if you put the big rocks in the jar first, and then you get smaller and smaller, it all fits in. So you will become very aware of the limitations you have, that time is finite when you actually put this side by side with your calendar. You have got to block out the most important things. And that makes it a lot easier, guys, to say no to things. And it makes it very visually clear, especially if you're into color coding, makes it very visually clear what you shouldn't spend time on, right? It makes it easier to say no if you can actually tie this to your calendar and visually stare at it, whether it's old school on paper, which I think is something you might want to consider, even though it sounds crazy. Or even old school now, guys, is using a computer, not a mobile device. And to me, I still prefer to do my calendaring on a computer where I can color code. And sometimes I'll color code in retrospect. Sometimes I'll go back on a week to just do a visual on how I did spend my time to put myself in check.
That's good. Yes, that's good.
I don't do it in real time.
That's good. One of the exercises that I always do after the end of every year, and it may not be the year to do it, but and it's painstaking. I actually go back and I look at how I spent my time. I review every single day of every single week, and I write down the things that were a big waste of my time. So I did this a couple of years ago, and I spent a lot of time getting my employee relocation certification because I thought it was important for some reason. And I realized, I spent all this time and energy on it and it really didn't result in anything. So when it came up to renew it, a part of me could have said oh, I have to spend 45 hours to renew this because of the sunk time. Right? I already sunk all that time. So I want to keep going with it. But then when I looked back, I realized, gosh, that it just really didn't result in anything. So it was on my list of things not to do. And then the calendar is so important. And this sounds really stupid, but for a long time, I used to do my 411 and I didn't have my calendar out with me. I would just have this list of things that I needed to accomplish every week. And then I wouldn't get half of them done sometimes. And I never really could figure it out. And so, what Via is saying is just so important is your personal time is first. Okay. That's what goes on your calendar first. Wednesday night, date night. Okay. You look at my calendar and it says Wednesday night, date night at 6:30 from now until whenever my Google Calendar ends. That's it.
So do not call Wendy for a listing appointment on a Wednesday night. She won't go.
No. Yeah, I don't. I won't go.
Yeah, she won't
right.
Go.
And that's okay. And I've had hundreds of conversations with sellers, which has said, hey, I already have an appointment that night. Can we do it Thursday?
Yep.
Right. Same thing with vacations, right? Vacations are planned at the end of the calendar year, whether you know where you're going to go or whether you're not going to go, you've put them on the calendar, right? And all the other things that are important. As soon as you get your kids' soccer game
on the calendar,
right? Schedule, that goes on the calendar, right? So then when you're looking at your week with your 411, you're looking at your week and you're like, well, I can't do it then. I have a soccer game. I think what happens so often, and the reason we feel so stressed is we haven't done that calendaring, which is boring, right? And if you've got an assistant, they can help you out. It's super boring. And then what happens is we're scrambling. Yeah. We're scrambling. We're stressed out. We've got this, we've got that. We've got to try to make everything fit. And I do it too. Like I try to squeeze as much in as possible. Sometimes I'll squeeze things in like a 30-minute slot, which is okay, right? But at the end of the day, most of those things can just roll over until next week, you know?
That's like, this part is so important. And I think this took me probably 5 years to really figure out. There's still part of it I am failing forward on. Like, you know, I think we all have a little bit of ourselves that are failing forward, but like this has been so huge just in my personal and professional growth to get exactly what Wendy and Via were talking about down. The other thing that's helped me too, where Nick is highly visual. And so we have the monthly calendar up on the fridge where he can see what's coming up in the upcoming weeks too. And like a great example of that is we're up in Michigan where I'm working up here this summer. And we were only looking at the calendar 1 week at a time. And all of a sudden, when we started writing our weeks out in a month, we realized that in a matter of like 6 or 7 weeks, we have had 5 different groups through with like only 3 days off of non-overlapping company. But because we were only booking it out 1 week at a time, we weren't thinking logistically through like, ooh, that is going to be 5 sets of sheet changes, 5 sets of meal planning, 5 sets of all these things that like we just got done with that wrap and like ended up canceling company coming this next week because it was just too much. You know, we needed a break. Yeah. But if we had looked at that a little bit more holistically of a whole month at a time, it would have probably saved us a little bit of stress.
And that's why, you know, Via's saying, and Gary's a huge adviot of the paper calendar, which is you can open up your month and you literally look at all your month and you only have your most important things on there. Yeah. You're like, I'm going to Italy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Cause it can happen where you're like, oh, that weekend's free. The weekend after is free, right? But then all of a sudden you've got 2 months that are full. And you guys, we're coming off a time where we're all excited to jump back in, see people. I mean, I know I'm there. I had a happy hour last night. It was so fun. And at the same time, you know, be cognizant of your time, understand your energy, right? Don't go out and just load your calendar up again, just because you can.
Amen. Love that. And that did remind me to get super techie geeky. If you use Google Calendar, I don't know about Outlook, but if you use Google Calendar, I do this. You can have a vacation calendar, whatever. You can kind of overlay them and you can view them that way. You can view them kind of separately. The other thing I wanted to add, Wendy, you reminded me of something. And it was like 5 years ago that I heard this. I think it was from Brian Gubernick. And you reminded me, when you put this clarity up front and you're really clear about like what your priorities are and what has to be done, I think it was Brian. He said he thinks in terms of 15-minute increments. And whenever he has 15 minutes, he now knows what to do because he has the clarity of how to fill it. And he thinks, and he's trained his brain to think in terms of 15-minute chunks of activities. Like, you know, and I started to do that over the last few years. Like what I do is I plan my drives. Do I want nothing? Do I want white space? And by the way, that is an option I choose a lot. I don't want any music. I don't want any spoken word, whatever. Do I have important calls I need to make? That's probably my second most popular option. You know, it's very rare that these days that I'm actually listening to a podcast. I hate to say it, or it's planned. That would be my third option, but it's very planned that way. Because I think now in terms of 15-minute increments, like in the car or, you know, when I'm waiting for things. So I just thought I'd pepper that in.
Thank you.
I know we need to get to budget.
Yeah. Well, I love
that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So our next thing is really to think about how we can do more with less in terms of our budget. So I know when I first thought about hiring help, it definitely feels weird to pay someone for something that I could actually do myself. As entrepreneurs, we're all pretty capable.
Yeah.
We have worn all the hats in our businesses typically. But when I started to look at my dollar per hour and really focus on my priorities, which at the time when I started my real estate business, I had 2 kids. They were 3 and 5 years old, and my husband was a busy executive. And when I looked at where I wanted to spend my time, that's when I really started to master. And I'm not a master of it, but that's when I started to study.
You're
leverage.
Far along in the pursuit. You're very far along.
I think you're probably considered a master.
Well, thank you. Well, that's nice. Thank you.
Leverage master.
So I like this title.
I know.
It's making me puff up a little bit.
Just sit a little taller.
Yeah. So
did you like my sexy whisper, by the way?
I was good.
I
was
did.
really good.
I always
Leverage
do.
master.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that deserves
Yes.
one of these.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It really did deserve
Thank
that.
you.
Okay.
We just discovered some little thing.
We're so high tech. We have sound
these
effects.
little things.
Yes.
We
exciting?
just discovered that when Via went to get a cup of coffee. Seychelle and I discovered
we
that
were really
together.
excited to use that. So you are welcome,
I'm
listeners.
kind of floored right now, actually, because I was getting coffee. I did not know about that. So
Yep.
anyway.
Now you know.
I'm always the one that brings us off track, I've noticed. We need to, sorry. Okay, back to the
No,
budget.
I think I do
We're
it
good.
sometimes too.
Yeah.
I think Seychelle's
Well,
the best whipper.
maybe someday
A whippersnapper?
offline they can get
Am I a
our
whippersnapper?
nickname for
No,
Seychelle, and
like
they'll know why.
You're cracking the whip.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So budget, guys. The key isn't to go over your budget. We want to just start looking at some life hacks to get help on a budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a good place for some good examples of this would be, to get help with carpool, to get help with a dog walker, to get help with, if you don't like to plan your own travel, get a travel agent,
Meal prep.
get a bookkeeper, get someone to do your meal prep for you. You can get someone I can remember someone told me that they hired someone just to drive their kids to all their sporting activities.
Yep.
They had 3 kids between the ages of 12 and 15, right? Nobody could drive yet. And honestly, that can be a full-time job.
Yeah.
And, just hiring a college student to drive your kids around can be massive. So really think about some of those ways that you can do more with less time. And honestly, that's, if you've got 3 kids in the back of your car, that's not quality time with them necessarily, right? And you're probably talking to clients or whatever you're doing in the car anyway. So just for your peace of mind, leverage that out and you'll probably be a lot more effective.
Well, yeah. And we talked about budget just now and just kind of figuring out what your dollar per hour is and kind of coming to peace with some of this. Let's talk about who we should leverage some of it out to. And it kind of ties into that, Wendy, a little bit, because here's a real life example that happened yesterday. I got a super fun text from hubby that was to our family group text that my assistant was mirroring my screen and it popped up. She's like, whoa, he's a little upset. He was. The dogs had a little accident. And, my husband kind of hit his limit with that. And he's like, family meeting about the dogs, right? Because we just are, we're trying to drag the kids to walk the dogs. We're too busy. It's like a whole thing. So I was driving home, preparing for what was awaiting me at home. And I'm like, all right, I can get on, there's a lot of apps. I can hire a dog walker. And then I started thinking, well, okay, it's probably fair that this isn't in the scope of their regular chores, right? It's my dog. I'm the one that brought the dogs in, like whatever. So that is a good example.
I can't help but now thinking about that.
You're the one.
Should we do a whole episode on the dogs? We should do a whole episode on my dog.
The pandemic puppies.
Yeah, 2 dogs in a year. Yeah, that's a long story. But
how to take 2 dogs and turn it into 5.
Well, that's
different. That's a different kind of.
That's a different topic. But I do have YouTube. I do need to publish it to YouTube. I whelped 3 puppies, people. I got a quarantine puppy.
You did.
And my quarantine puppy got pregnant at 6 months with 3 puppies. That's a whole new episode. However, here's what my point is. How to distinguish who. I could hire someone outside and then I thought, okay, this is a time I'll pay my kids. I don't always pay my kids. They don't get paid to put the dishes away. Right. They don't get paid to do their chores. they're going to get paid for this. So I sat down last night and I said, kids, I'm about to pay a dog walker. Do you want to make some money? Yeah. I'm like, okay, then let me research how much it is I would pay. And I'm going to give you an offer, basically. And we're going to see. So the only reason I share that is that like, that's how I distinguish, am I going to pay the kids to do something or am I going to hire out? If they were like, no, it's not worth any amount of money, you guys, I would have hired it. As it happens, they want to make the money.
Yeah. Well, don't tell Gus how much you're paying your son because Gus only gets paid $2 a day.
$1
a day.
Well, each time you take them out.
If you watch me on YouTube, I just said no. I mouthed no, but I just didn't want Gus to hear that. So,
well, Gus doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah,
so
either do my
One
kids.
day he might.
Good.
He's going to be like, I got ripped off.
It'll be this episode.
Quinn will
Murphy's
too.
Law. This is the one episode. He'll listen to.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the story of my life. He would listen to that one.
I think the other thing too that I personally have struggled with some on this is like just the straight up asking for help. I feel like I always am the one that offers to help other people, but I have trouble accepting help. And so on the leverage piece, like getting over I don't know if it's pride or ego or what it is. It's probably some of both, but just not being too proud to be like, I need help with this. Like friends or family, can you help me with this?
I struggle with that a lot.
I think we all do.
I think I just grew up very independent.
Yeah.
And
I'm just used to doing
I struggle with it a lot. Yeah. It was actually a big aha. One episode we talked about your love language. And sometimes your love language is the thing that you actually need the most help with.
Oh.
Right. So my love language is acts of service.
Me too. Same here.
Which is basically help.
It's
and
leverage.
it's the thing that you're most afraid to ask for is help.
Oh, interesting.
It's interesting.
Well, yeah,
that's why it's our
that
love
would be
language.
accurate. That would be accurate.
If you read that book, True Acts of Service, the true definition is unasked.
It's doing it. It's doing it without being asked.
It's not, can you go get me the coffee? It's unprompted. Someone brings you a cup of coffee.
It shows up through the screen.
Yeah, for sure.
That is fair. I love that.
So, the point with this is that calendars and budget have to come into consideration here, right? That is part of the equation. We understand that. Do the numbers, map it out, figure out who is going to do all the work. Sometimes you're going to pay. Sometimes it can be kids. Sometimes it's going to be paid kids. Sometimes it can be, a mother.
Actually,
Wendy, I think you employ a mother. Don't you employ a mom?
No.
I don't know why I thought that. Someone, I don't remember who it is, employs a mom.
I mean, I've got some on my real estate team. Yeah. Oh, you mean my mom? Yeah. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. She drives. Yeah. She drives my kids.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. I was confused. I was thinking like neighborhood mom.
I couldn't remember if it was mother-in-law or your mom.
No, she is actually, she's a great help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you would have paid someone to do it and you're like, might as well pay you, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So that you make these decisions on who just based on that kind of a thing, right? Like, I would argue, it doesn't matter who cooks the meal really, as long as it's healthy, you just make decisions based on, are you going to pay for food prep or not? And if you are, you just make the best decisions. So each one of these can actually be put on a GPS, by the way, figuring these out can be action items in themselves. And then making a decision and dating the decision. You don't have to marry it, saying I'm going to try, this one company for food prep for a month. And if the family doesn't like it, we're going to go on to the next. You don't have to be, married to any of them.
Yep. I love this. And honestly, guys, we all need to hear this all the time. I know we talk about leverage all the time. And the only way you're going to grow a big business and a big life is to
get it down.
Get over this, get over the hump here. I mean, if you feel like you've got to control and keep your fingers in everything, you're never going to get the life that you want. You're just not. You're going to be stuck doing all the things all the time. And if you think that you are the best person to do all those things, that's just hubris.
That's right.
There's no other way to put it. It's just hubris. You've got your 20%. You've got the things that, God put everybody on this planet for a reason. And if you don't know what they are, it's your job to figure it out. And once you figure it out, it's to run towards that 20%. And you give the 80% to others in your life so that they have the opportunity to do the same.
That's right.
And if you have the skills and the ability to make money and grow a business, you should absolutely do that. And you should keep running toward that to continue to give opportunity to others, because there's not enough good leadership in the world. There's not enough good businesses. There's not enough great great cultures, right? And so you guys owe it to the world to continue to do that.
Wendy is on fire today.
Ooh,
Just like,
yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I love it. Well,
Yeah,
y'all, thank
Love
you
that.
for this. I mean, I think, today our goal was to give you a really good framework for how to do more in less time. And so, we encourage you to go out and create your not to-do list, right? Get clear about what your dollar per hour is and what serves you and what doesn't, and create opportunity for others. And then match that up to your calendar. Make sure your priorities are on the calendar and that the things that are the most important are on there and that your time is valued. Then go figure out your budget or your hacks, right? Or your tech that are going to help you leverage that. And then go say no and find the people that want to say yes to those opportunities. So, you guys, this is a hard one. We're probably going to visit this one again in the future because this is one of the hardest things to do. So we encourage you to go out there and build that big business and, more importantly, chase towards building that even bigger life. Thanks for joining us today, guys. And please leave us a great review or a rating if you liked this episode today. Bye.
And share it with your friends. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Empire Building. If you like what you heard, join our tribe by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform and help us spread the word by leaving a 5-star rating and review. Until next time, wishing you a life worth living. And remember, you are an empire builder.